All right, and we are live for the latest edition of Nick Valencia Live. Hey, everybody, happy Thursday. It's the day before Halloween. And if the DHS secretary has anything to say about what happens tomorrow, it is going to be a very active Halloween for ICE agents all across the country. We want to dive right into what is happening on the streets of America, and mostly we should point out Democratic cities. It was again another scene of flaring up tactics by the feds who hit the streets of Oxnard yesterday. And it all started at a very, very early hour, as we see that is typical for federal immigration operations. And that news of those Bearcats on the streets of Oxnard in Ventura County, it spread like wildfire through the community. And by about 9 in the morning, there were dozens and dozens of residents, everyday community members, some activists, protesters, loved ones, just mixed in, standing up to the presence of the feds on the streets of Oxnard. We have a special guest that's going to join us in just a little bit to talk about all of that. He's been keeping an eye on federal immigration activity in Oxnard, in and around the area. But first, we want to show you videos of what happened and what unfolded yesterday in Oxnard, California.
You too! That's assault! I'm pressed! And you assaulted me! I did not do anything to you! You assaulted me! That is assault! You used your weapons on crowd! That is not a form of control!
Guys! They just detained us! They dropped him down there. They took a protester. Hold on.
It's urban warfare there on the streets of Oxnard. I mentioned that it was an immigration operation. I misspoke. According to the mayor there locally in Oxnard, Luis MacArthur, he's a 30-year veteran of the police force. He said that those federal agents that were on the streets there had a very specific purpose, and it had to do with an immigration raid that happened earlier this summer at the Glass House. You remember the marijuana dispensary that was raided by the feds? It was one of those, quote, I hate to say good raids, because what raid is good, but it was a warrant. They had warrants for that raid. And it was even, it went sideways. Things went pear-shaped because there's such a lack of trust there among community members, really all across the country when it comes to federal agents on their streets. Luis MacArthur, the mayor of Oxnard, he took exception with what happened yesterday. And he said it was actually the federal agents that made their community less safe by entering it.
You too! That's assault!
Hello everyone, this is Luis MacArthur, the mayor of Oxnard. I'm here to talk about the incident that happened this morning on North A Street, where ICE showed up in the 400 block to arrest two individuals, Isaiah Carrillo and Virginia Reyes, brother and sister, because ICE alleges that on July 10th, the raid that occurred at the Glass House in Camarillo, that Isaiah threw rocks and assaulted agents, and that his sister impeded the agent's efforts to execute the search warrant on that day. Look, I understand the importance of holding people accountable, but what we saw this morning, direct accounts from those on the scene and also supported by video footage, it was just an exaggerated response by ICE. Some 40 agents showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning without any consideration or regard of how their actions could impact innocent people that have absolutely nothing to do with this. Our community is already hurting. About 2 weeks ago, we saw ICE purposely, deliberately ram a vehicle, injuring its driver. This repeated use of force against innocent people, unarmed people, is unacceptable and outright inexcusable. As a police officer for over 30 years, I certainly know law enforcement. And I tell you, I'm deeply disturbed by the actions I'm seeing with ICE agents. They're outright engaging in arguments with protesters and carelessly discharging chemical agents against people. I certainly urge our protesters that are out to exercise their First Amendment right and certainly conduct themselves in a way that they express with passion what it is they're standing up for. But to refrain from hurting or vandalizing vehicles. I urge that from our protesters as well. But such militarized response by ICE has no place in our community. It's just creating chaos and terrorizing the members of our community, and we deserve better. Every resident in our community deserves to be treated with dignity and respect, and I will continue to work with our elected congressional representatives to ensure that we share the evidence that we have that ICE agents be held accountable for their actions of mistreatment and outright unacceptable behavior and outright just unnecessary. Thank you.
You remember the Glass House raid in July? A man died as a result of running away from there out of fear. He died. He had I believe, a 30-foot fall. There was also an American citizen, a combat war veteran that was taken into custody. Here's the problem here. If you've been following our coverage in the course of the last, week, we have been highlighting a lot of these incidents involving everyday Americans and what appears to be federal agents on our street. Law enforcement sources that I have reached out to me over the course of the last 24 hours, pushing back on some of our characterization of those videos and really going out of their way to try to say every single incident that they've seen, that I've posted about, is in some way justifiable. Whether it was the incident in Virginia, whether it was a 16-year-old recording while her mom was being pulled over by ICE and lunged at, whether that was the 57-year-old woman who was thrown to the ground by an HSI agent, suspected HSI agent outside of a detention facility, or whether that is the firing of a security guard outside of Menards in Cicero, Illinois, because he was recording ICE activity and nearly pepper sprayed. All of these incidents, according to law enforcement sources, are justified in the reaction to American citizens, to people that are taping this, to people that have, that are upset, they're pissed off that good people, everyday contributing members of society, are being ripped off these streets without warrants by masked, suspected federal agents. One of the people that has been documenting the activity in and around Oxnard is Joseph Dobzynski. He's with the 805 Undocu Fundm. And we wanted to have Joseph on the show here to react to what was happening yesterday in his community. Joseph, come on in the show.
Hi. Thanks for having me, Nick.
Oh man, we are so grateful because you are one of those hyper-local voices in a community that is helping people in and around understand what is unfolding. So help us understand what's been happening in Oxnard and what did you see unfold yesterday?
Ventura County's been one of the hardest hit counties in the nation since this elevated immigration enforcement actions have taken place. The entire Southland here gets hit pretty hard on a regular basis. You can see a lot of that happening and being recorded on LA Taco for the Los Angeles area. I do a similar sort of thing, but just kind of for Ventura County, where I'm outside of their ICE field office at 321 Cortez Circle in Camarillo, and every day I put out a raid report for any incidents that took place and how many raid vehicles we know of are there at the place or out in the community or just not showing up on our radar. Oxnard in particular has been hit a lot because of its demographics and because of a lot of the symbolism regarding immigrant organizing over the years. What I saw yesterday about 5:30 in the morning through our rapid response networks, we got a notification that there was 4 to 5 ICE vehicles on A Street. After I got there about 15 minutes later, it was clearly way more than that. They had roped off with police tape both ends of about the 400 block of North A Street in Oxnard. Number of vehicles varies because they were coming in and out for a while until the protesters stopped there. But I think I counted 17 different vehicles. And I also found at least 30 plus agents there doing that, plus the Bearcat. At one point, there were 2 fighter jets that flew over, but we have a military base, so I'm hoping that's coincidental. And what it was, it seemed like an unnecessary show of force for what they later said was issuing a warrant for 2 people. I don't know. In some ways, it felt like retaliation for the fact that they got caught lying about what happened to Leo Martinez about 2 weeks earlier. That was mentioned by Mayor MacArthur. Leo Martinez was accused of doing a hit and run on ICE agents, but it actually turns out that they hit him, and then they did the side ramming of his truck right after that, and then chased him through the streets of Oxnard for like 12 minutes until he could find a place to pull over for OPD to show up. Uh,
Let's pick up on
things,
this. Let's pick up on
yeah.
this. Leo Martinez, part of VC Defensa. It's a story that we covered. We showed that video as well, where it appeared as though he was rammed. He was actually taken to the hospital just to check out and make sure he wasn't seriously injured. When you hear what I'd said about law enforcement sources that have reached out to us, Joseph, how do you reconcile that when you have law enforcement saying, hey, look, this is what you should expect if you guys are going to come out in the street and if you guys are going to stand up to what you feel is morally wrong, you're going to be met with this heavy hand and it's going to be justifiable. I want you to react to that of what we're hearing.
Well, I disagree with a lot of those law enforcement agencies because everything we do as part of our rapid response network is protected by the First Amendment and here in California by California state rights to observe and report on law enforcement activity. Our job in rapid response is to do just that, observe and report on ICE activity happening in real time, if necessary, within Ventura County. We don't engage in any illegal activity in doing that. In fact, in many ways, it feels like Leo said 2 weeks ago, it feels like we're fighting with both hands behind our back because, you know, they've got masks, they've got weapons, they've got unmarked cars, they've got $1 trillion intelligence machine to help them do everything they need to do. And I'm just some old dude with a camera outside of their field office tracking raid vehicles going in and out.
Well, don't ever say you're just anything. That's somebody's old mentor told me a long time ago. You're not just anything. You're doing work that is really important. And I'm sure that you know that. What do you say to those that push back? You know, I mean, I'd love to just, this isn't baiting, you know, because we're clearly grateful for the work that you do. But I do want to hear in your words why you think it's so important what you do and what you say to the critics who say that you're, you know, because I'm sure you've heard it, that you're interfering potentially with federal operations. You know, we are documenting the same at Nick Valencia News in the short term, knowing that power is going to change hands and that these individuals need to be held accountable. Is that the genesis of what you're doing, accountability?
For us, primarily, it's to protect the immigrant community right now from this reign of terror that ICE has been on for the last 6 months, or more than that now, 10 months, actually.
Yeah.
It feels like 10 years. That's our primary focus as 805 Undocu Fundm, and it's one of the reasons why VC Defensa does the work that they do as well within Ventura County, and why a bunch of other rapid response groups do their work. It's for the families first. But past that, there is something to holding law enforcement, if that's what we want to call ICE, holding them accountable for their actions right now. And I feel like that's the gap right now. There's no accountability for their actions at all when they're out and about doing what they do. And we've caught them now so many times lying about what's happened in certain cases. They've made a false 911 call in Chicago to bring law enforcement out and try to harass some people who were press setting up there. They've crossed lines that they shouldn't have outside of field offices and dragged people onto their property and said that they were trespassing afterwards. It's really frustrating because it has completely eliminated all credibility that ICE has. And so I would say that what we're doing is trying to hold them accountable for the stories that they turn around and spin to the media that's favorable about what they're doing right now.
You know, what's also really difficult, Joseph, is even for this journalist who's covered immigration for 20 years, I know the difference between CBP and ICE and Border Patrol. I know the uniforms, but even in this era that we're in this epic, I'm confused by who I see on the streets. Our streets are so federalized. There's so many tactically, you know, all this people that look like GI Joes out there, and I'm supposed to, as this immigration expert, distinguish who is who. I mean, that was part of the conversation that I had, you know, in this last day with law enforcement sources. Is that, hey, look, you can't just say suspected federal agents. This may be one agency, but the problem is, and you know this better than most, they're not identifying who they are with.
Right. Right now, they're all masked. They never give their names and badge numbers, even though they're required to by California state law. When they're here, they run around in unmarked cars with tinted windows, you know, doing snatch and grabs of people on their way to work. And you know, like I just said, you know, they I don't say misrepresent, but they lie about what they're doing while they're out there. And it's been really frustrating for us who are on the ground doing this work, going to city councils and county boards, and even trying to work with law enforcement agencies to figure out what we can do, where they didn't believe us at first, and now suddenly they're starting to see all this video evidence come out of them saying that they did this, but it was actually this. They make false claims about their safety all the time so that law enforcement will come and harass folks that are following them and observing and reporting in accordance with their First Amendment and California state rights. And I think that's what hurts local law enforcement a lot, whether that's in our case the city police departments or the county sheriffs. Um, ICE has figured out all the magic words to say in order to get local law enforcement to come in for mutual aid in any situation that's happening. If we're following them, they say their safety's in jeopardy. If we're protesting, they say that there's agitators there. If we're documenting and putting photos out there, they say we're impeding an investigation, even though all of that's all protected speech and actions. I feel for law enforcement, but at the same time, I don't know. I don't know what good law enforcement is for public safety if they can't help us during this time. I feel like I do more with a camera outside of the field office than all of the local law enforcement has done in 10 months to protect people from ICE. And the fact is that local law enforcement will always come out to protect ICE from the public, but they'll never come out to protect the public from ICE.
Well, we have seen instances in Bell, California. We've seen some instances in, that's the one I could think of off the top of my head in Bell, where the local cops came and they protected a guy who was at risk of being taken, who eventually did end up getting taken. Hopefully you're back on, Joseph, but I wanted to react. Do you feel as though your elected officials have your back? Do you feel as though, you heard the comments from the mayor. Do you think, is that helpful at all? Joseph, we still can't see you. I think your camera is off. If you want to come back on here, audio only, just turn your camera on. Love to see that beautiful face, brother.
There we go. There we go. Sorry, I had a call come in. It messed me
Oh,
up.
it's okay. Hey, the audience understands. It's part of the Substack and social media streaming. Just to pick up,
Right.
do you feel as though your elected officials have your back? Where are they? You heard the mayor there speak up and speak out. Is that enough?
I mean, that's the first time we've heard the mayor actually speak out and say something directly critical of what ICE is doing. A lot of the times it's saying mostly how it has to deal with jurisdiction and how they can't do anything and how their hands are tied. I think that the struggle right now, particularly for Oxnard Police Department, is that there are 2 decades of gang enforcement activity that created a generational trauma for entire populations of Oxnard back in the 80s and 90s. And they were directly involved in causing that generational trauma. Now the generational trauma is happening by ICE, and they're just kind of standing off to the side saying we can't do anything, except when they're coming in to protect ICE. They say they're keeping the peace, but it always seems like the officers are faced one direction, and it's always towards the protesters and in front of ICE for whenever that's happening. I understand they're in a horrible bind, but at some point we're going to have to ask ourselves, what good is it for local law enforcement and county law enforcement to follow all the rules and laws if they're just going to turn it over to an organization like ICE and all the federal agencies that seem to be working with them that are constantly shredding the Constitution and playing games with the law to continue doing whatever they want? I don't know if it makes local law enforcement complicit, but it does, kind of get them off the hook and leave us in a huge public safety crisis with what's happening.
It creates a strain, Joseph. It creates a lack of trust where you're left to your own devices. You feel like no one has your back. You feel like you got to take matters into your own hands. And as you're talking, I tell my son still to go high five the police officer, right? I tell them and encourage them that, police officers are good. And I'm getting more and more examples, though, of why that theory and analogy may not be good, right? And I hate that. I grew up, unfortunately, in the 90s in LA, and it was a very volatile time. We had the Rampart scandal. As I came of age and started driving, my parents were, they gave me the talk about LAPD pulling up on you. And so now we're seeing this lack of trust sort of permeate, right? And you're seeing people like you, the 805 Undocu Fund, filling the void. Is it? I want to talk about you being an ally. Are you Latino? You're Polish, right? You said.
Yeah, I am a European mutt, Polish, Irish, German, whatever, but definitely all Euro-Caucasian.
But you are active and helping a demographic like ours, the Latino community, which we feel being like we're being persecuted. What makes you so passionate about an issue like this?
Well, because yeah, I see us all as one big community, not just divided by race, but we're all in the same fight right now against the same problem, which is a government that is uh, wildly out of control with everything that it's doing. I also feel like if it's not just a problem for the Latino community, it's a problem for all of us. And so I got involved as a volunteer back in June, just thinking I'd be driving around listening to audiobooks and kind of texting whenever I saw ICE. And after 2 weeks and then being at the Glass House raids on the Laguna and Las Posas side, I realized that this fight is so much bigger than just trying to help a few families in our area. We got a high population of undocumented immigrants that exist in Ventura County and contribute every day. A lot of them have children and relatives that are citizens that are also being targeted now. I don't think it'll stop with the Latino community, the undocumented community. There's already been talk about going after other segments of the community, depending on where you're at. I'm a member of the queer community, so I'm very concerned about, all the rollbacks that have happened in the last 10 months regarding LGBTQ plus rights. So if we don't stand up and, fight against this now, we may not get the opportunity to do it later. There's that poem from the Nazi era where, first they came for the trade unionists and I said nothing because I wasn't a trade unionist. I feel right now, first they're coming for the undocumented immigrants and I'm not going to, I know the rest of the poem. I got to get involved now.
And if you're just
It's been eye opening. Yeah.
if you're just joining us, you're joined now by a member of the 805 Undocu Fund, someone out of Oxnard, California, that's seen a lot of activity when it comes to immigration federal agents in that area. Joseph Dobzynski, he is an activist. And while you're here with us, Joseph, it struck me yesterday while I was watching some of your videos and some of the stuff that we've been reporting on. There's going to be a moment for some of our viewers that are watching where they are encountered with what you see basically every day or on a weekly basis. It's normal to you now, right? Like I'm here listening to you talking, thinking like you go into it one way, eyes wide open. It is now an everyday thing where it's active. We've seen scenes like urban warfare. Help prepare our viewers, our readers for when ICE comes to their doorstep. What do you do? What are the first steps? How do you protect yourself? How do you do it legally? And we want to take advantage of you here being with us on the show. Lay it out for us.
So if they come to your doorstep, unless they have a judicial warrant signed by a judge, you don't have to open that door or engage with them in any way, shape, or form.
That's
advice we
literally,
give.
but what about figuratively if they come to your city?
Okay, well, then it's really, I would get involved with any sort of rapid response organizing that's happening there already. We've seen a lot of groups in the newer places where this enforcement has come, especially in Chicago, where neighborhoods are getting together to decide what they're going to do about it, particularly because the police departments, were slow to react, I would say, in the Chicagoland area to push back against that. They're doing better now. CPD and Broadview and all of that are doing their best within the law to do what they need to do. But I would be careful. I wouldn't try to go into any sort of situation without knowing exactly what you're getting involved with. I don't recommend people just run in and start filming or anything like that. Definitely keep your distance unless you're being directly targeted. And get some training about what to do and how to do it. There's the wonderful Chicago code that's been developed with the whistles to help neighborhoods stay informed on what they're doing. There's all sorts of networks that have been built up, and I've been grateful with the 805 Undocu Fund to work with other groups like VC Defensa, like SB Resiste, like Unión del Barrio. There's smaller groups too that are forming to patrol just their cities and to integrate with all of the work that we're doing. And if somebody really wants to fight back, metaphorically, with what's going on, then that would be the best way to do it, so that you know exactly what all your rights are as a citizen, for whatever that's worth anymore, and how to go about things safely, and most importantly, to have people who will have your back if something should happen. It's easy for them to pick off one or two of us when they see the opportunity. It's a lot harder when, say, 150 people show up at a raid that's serving a warrant for two people in Oxnard.
It's
They have to
power
think
in
twice at that
numbers.
point.
It's
Yes,
power
it's
in
the only
numbers.
advantage we have. They got all the money, they got all the toys, they got all the technology. All we've got are people, and that's way stronger than any of those other things.
We hear your dog in the background. What's their name?
It's Pedro, the patrol pup. He's
Man, you really do
wondering.
rock with the Mexicans, huh? I love it. I love
Yeah,
it.
that was the name of the dog when we picked them out. We named him Pedro Pascal. So
Oh,
he's doing
Pedro
all right.
Pascual. Okay, I love it. Oh, Pascual. Oh, I love the play
Yeah.
on words. Joseph, you're so lovely, man. Thank you so much for taking the time with us. I try to finish every interview by asking this question. If there's anything I haven't asked you that you'd like to talk about, or anything that you'd like to mention, now's your chance. Give yourself a plug, or where we can follow your work, or anything else that's on your mind.
So you can follow me personally on Instagram and on Facebook at J Dobzynski, and go ahead and cut and paste the name from wherever caption comes out from this. But to get more information about 805 Undocu Fund, go to 805undocufund.org. You can learn about the stuff that we do. It's not just rapid response to ICE sightings, but we also do community outreach to neighborhoods and to civic councils and all of that. We also provide mutual aid to families in need that have been affected by ICE families. And if anybody is in the Ventura County, Santa Barbara County, or SLO County, and they see any ICE activity or want to get involved, you can call our hotline at 805-870-8855.
We'll be sure to spread all that information, spread the awareness. Isn't it something that people like you have to exist right now? Isn't it something that
Uh,
groups like yours have to step up?
I could use a break at this point, but it's going to
No,
be a while before I get that.
and on that note, Joseph, like, it's something that we mental health is so important for our team, because we're consuming literally the worst of the worst. And I heard a long time ago from a man named Greg Lee, still my favorite interview in Louisiana, Webster Parish. He says, what you see, what you hear, what you listen to, you end up absorbing. And so just take care of yourself, man. I've got to hear myself say that too, because it's really ugly out there, and there's a lot of beautiful things still in this world, man. You're one of them. So thank you so much for just being gracious with your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome, Nick. And the
All
dog helps me with all of that mental health stuff. So it sounds like I got something to get to.
All right, give my best to Pedro Pascual, and we'll talk to you soon, brother. Thank you so
Take
much.
care.
It's Joseph Dobzynski with the 805 Undocu Fundm. And just to pick up on that theme that we were talking about there, isn't it something that organizations like that have to exist? And if you've been following our reporting, you know that we've spoken to a lot of people like that throughout the country. People like Unión del Barrio, El Chavo. We talked to him on the streets of Huntington Park when we were there after an activist had the side of their home blown off. It was like a 3 by 6 foot hole. You guys remember this story in Huntington Park, where the activists, they were going after them because they felt that they interfered with a raid. There was a toddler on the other side of the wall who had just been moved, and the police blew a hole in the side of his home. Well, we were there in Huntington Park just days after that happened, and met Unión del Barrio, El Chavo from Unión del Barrio. And, we talked to him about just the importance of what people like him and Joseph and others are doing all across the country. There is a serious issue with a lack of trust among law enforcement. And yes, there is a very, it's fair. And I find merit in when my law enforcement friends and sources reach out to me and say, hey, look, we need to be careful about distinguishing who is who. But that is the problem. We don't know who people are. They're not identifying themselves. You heard Joseph talking about it. People under California law are required to give their badge number, their ID number. We've seen people play games, not move in good faith. We've heard from sources within the Trump administration close to these ICE operations that the gloves are off, that it's carte blanche. Go do what you want. You're going to be protected. We're going to have your back. And we hear from people like DHS Secretary Kristi Noem. I want to play you what she said on television earlier today, talking about how this is likely only going to get worse if she has anything to say about it.
No, we're absolutely not willing to put on pause any work that we will do to keep communities safe. The fact that Governor Pritzker is asking for that is shameful. And I think unfortunate that he doesn't recognize how important the work is that we do to make sure we're bringing criminals to justice and getting them off our streets, especially when we're going to send all of our kiddos out on the streets and going to events and enjoying the holiday season.
It's all about optics for the Trump administration. We know that it would be a great headline. You know, you get those spooky ICE agents out in the streets. We saw LA Taco and Memo Torres in his daily memo show people leaving a port. I'm drawing blanks on the name of the facility that they leave from every morning. Terminal Island, when they're leaving Terminal Island. Thank you so much to my executive producer for getting in my ear. We saw these ICE agents dressed up in Halloween masks. It's like a joke, or they're playing into the joke. They're trying, maybe that for them it's levity, but for everyday Americans who are looking at this, it's just tacky. And it's in bad faith and in bad taste. Someone who's been following this closely, probably more closely than we are even here at Nick Valencia News, and we're pretty proud of our coverage, is Pablo Manrqiuez, a friend of mine out of Washington, D.C., and he is following all things and all movements in Washington. And Pablo, we got him through his busy schedule. I think he's on the show now. We've been trying to connect with him. There he is. There's Pablo.
Hey, what's up, Nick?
Dude, what a scoop that you had earlier this week. I want to start there and pick up on some of your reporting. Hello, by the way.
Which one?
Where do you want to start? I thought the biometrics was insane. Tell me why that's different from what we do already at TSA. You know, when we're getting our pictures taken, we get our pictures taken all the time at the airport. But what's different about what this new rule is with DHS?
So basically, if you leave and you're a non-citizen, there are some ports of entry or ports of exit rather that will ask you to give your fingerprints and your scan and stuff like that. But now it's going to be the case at all of them. So that's a new DHS rule. I've dug it out of the Federal Register last night. I was looking for stories that hadn't been covered. And it is it's a big deal because basically they just the rationale that they're using for it is to say that they're trying to, clamp down on visa overstays. And I guess this is one of those rare changes where if that is your rationale, it makes sense for the Department of Homeland Security to do that if they have the capacity. But I think for everyday Americans, it's going to create a longer line at customs, or for people trying, not necessarily for everyday Americans in this case, for people trying to leave, whether it's an American, whether it's a foreigner who's here and is going to leave, they're going to have longer lines because every single foreign non-citizen is going to have to get scanned. And that's going to be an indignant thing for, a lot of residents who aren't citizens but are fully legalized in whatever status that they have. But I felt like to me it was a scoop. I like a scoop. I like a news scoop. I'm all about the news scoops, right? But it wasn't the most significant thing happening this week. There are a lot bigger stories. I think the biggest scoop to come out of this week came from the Washington Examiner, actually. And they found out that ICE is getting purged at the top ranks and being replaced by Border Patrol, which is really interesting. I think that a thing that people are missing right now from the narrative is that Border Patrol comes highly trained in crowd control because their whole job is to people come across the border, you got to control the crowd, right? So they train them. ICE is given a badge and a gun, and not even a badge, just a gun and a vest, and they're sent out into the streets and they're in their sneakers. Border Patrol is a paramilitary force, with 7 decades of experience in doing this work. So it is going to be they're going to be a lot tougher on places like Chicago, on urban environments that they're not used to working in. Border Patrol is used to working in checkpoints in the desert and going out on horses and stuff like that. So when you see them arrive on horses in Chicago, then it's the Border Patrol's here.
It's crazy to me to see them on the streets, Pablo. You see them in the open fields. You see them on the border. We know their jurisdiction is within 100 miles of the border. And you pass those checkpoints in Texas, when you're coming from the South Texas and going through to San Antonio, you'll see them there. But then on the streets of America, man, it's really eerie and very strange for me. How about you?
I mean, it's getting worse. So the tracking that we've been doing, basically cataloging videos with locations and dates of different moments of misconduct, would indicate that the misconduct that we're seeing by agents against the populace, the immigrant and the citizen at this point, is increasing. It's escalating. It's in its intensity. There are a lot more shots being fired. There are a lot more people being thrown around. There are a lot more bones broken than there were even just a month ago. So that, I think, is commensurate with a paramilitary force like Border Patrol starting to elbow its way in. And kind of the funny thing is, like, ICE was like the heroes of the MAGA movement, and now they're getting totally sidelined by Border Patrol, which also, is kind of like the heroes of the MAGA movement. But it's interesting that ICE was unable to fulfill its job or do its capacity despite, all this hype, right, about ICE. So good riddance to ICE, as far as I'm concerned, and as far as I think communities are concerned across America. And I think that with Border Patrol, you're going to have a lot more. This is something we haven't really covered yet, but it's something I want to look into. I think that with Border Patrol, since it is a 7-decade-old bureaucratic governmental outpost within, I guess before it would have been the Department of Justice or the Marshals or something, but now in DHS, there will be more accountability measures. There'll be like, histories and precedents about what they're allowed to do and what they're not allowed to do. The unprecedented nature of it is that they're saying, Wicker Park in Chicago and Wrigleyville is the border, which is absurd. And it's
These are really nice
absurd
neighborhoods too. They're like $3 million, $2 million homes where you're seeing these federal agents looking like G.I. Joe walking through the streets, confronting soccer moms who are filming. I mean, that was what happened last week in Wrigleyville. My friend Sona, she was one of those people that were there in that incident. She got tear gassed 3 different times. These are like soccer moms on their way to go pick up their kids from school, in the half days. It's insane that we're seeing this, and it seems like from what we're reading and from what your reporting is telling us is that this is going to get worse before it gets better. Earlier, before we came on the show, LA Taco and Memo Torres, they reported a scoop about a gunfire, feds firing a shot in Ontario. I'm still waiting on getting the details out of that. Is it going to get that bad? I mean, how soon till someone gets hurt? Seriously.
I mean, I think it's a miracle that no one's been like, a lot of people have been killed. There was a guy in Chicago that got killed. And here's another thing. Like, so the guy in Chicago got killed, whose name, unfortunately, I can't remember. He was shot by an ICE agent, like, as the man was driving away. The ICE agent claimed that he tried to, kill him with his car or whatever. Multiple surveillance angles showed that wasn't the case. Now, my understanding is that agent who shot the man to death was back on the streets the next day. In what law enforcement agency in this country does a man who kills another man, right, not be taken aside and be like, are you okay? Like, here's the thing. We're going to need to do like a good investigation of this. You're going to need to get your stories in order, as the police always do. Instead of just like, okay, well, go back out there tomorrow. No big deal. Like, it's
no
sort
administrative leave, no paid leave, no mental decompression. You just
this
took a
is
life.
Kristi Noem's leadership at work, though. Like, this is the thing. She was a lightweight in Congress. She was a lightweight as a governor, and they've given her this incredible amount of money to spend. $160 billion on deportations with a $45 billion spending credit that she had the minute the bill was signed on July 4th. So, and yet she can't have any procedures in place for when your agents use the firearms that you're handing out so readily. This whole thing is a clown show. So I'm kind of like, with ICE being taken aside.
Though? Is she in charge, Pablo, or is it someone like Stephen Miller or Tom Homan or Greg Bovino at this point? Who is it?
It's definitely Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller is in charge of all of them. And there's no, everybody in the White House, everybody in the administration is scared of Stephen Miller. Stephen Miller has done the Game of Thrones equivalent internally at the White House of heads on pikes everywhere. So everybody could see that if you come in and Stephen Miller even just doesn't like you, you get screwed. So that's Stephen Miller. I wish we had one like him on the immigrant side of things when there's a Democrat in office, because honestly, all we've ever had is pushovers. But Stephen Miller is not a pushover. He's somebody who's thought about this for a long time. He's thought about he's fantasized about a governmental trifecta for decades, probably his whole life. And now he has it and he knows what to do with it, which unfortunately on the immigrant side of policy and politics, when we've had a trifecta, anytime there's been power, the people who get put in that place where Stephen Miller is sitting all the time. Because you got to remember, I've been here through presidencies. Yeah. I know that desk. I know this desk. I know this briefing room. I see who sat there before. Most of the time we get sources in the White House and stuff like that. After the presidency is over, they leave, right? But for me at this point, I'm looking at his desk and I'm thinking to myself, who could fill that desk and claw back everything from the civil rights to the bodily right, the bodily rights, the corpus, what's it called, the right to your bodily autonomy, which Stephen Miller
Yeah.
has taken away from immigrant communities. Who's going to call it back? Who actually has the strength? I see people jockeying, and I won't name them in this broadcast, but as we get closer to another administration, I'll be naming them a lot about the things that they've been writing, the things that they've been saying, and what they need to do to actually not be a pushover and get relief done for these immigrant communities who are going through it now, right? And in the future are going to need some relief. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? We're taking it on the chin right now. And what Democrats tend to do is after the shit show is over and immigrants have been destroyed by the hundreds of thousands, right? By the millions, they pivot to healthcare for old people. Like they just pivot to healthcare for old people. Like they literally like, it's just like, oh, healthcare, right? They just completely dodge any relief or any permanent citizenship status. And they put tokens in from our community, our Latino community, to toe the line on total bullshit policies that are never going to be immune to somebody like Stephen Miller. So when I look at the desk that Stephen's in, I just keep thinking to myself, day after day after day, who could fill that desk that will be adequate after Stephen Miller has had it twice, you know?
When you see the Democrats in motion, you hear things like what Representative Robert Garcia is saying, doing an ICE tracker. What do you make of that? Like when you see them say, we're going to go and there's going to be a time where these federal agents, part of the immigration operation, are going to be held accountable for their unlawful actions. We're going to start tracking it. How should we interpret this? Should we have hope? And should we think, oh my God, this is like the Democrats are, yes, they're starting to hold people accountable and preparing for that. Or is this hot air?
No, it's a timeline issue. So basically, because Trump can pardon any Border Patrol or ICE officer that commits misconduct, you can kill whoever you want, and Trump can just pardon you, right? The first step is Democrats regain control, and then you subpoena the officials, you get all the testimony on the record and stuff like that. And then, I hate to say it, but 3 years, 2 months or whatever from now, then you might have the opportunity to press charges. So, because if you do it beforehand, again, Trump could just pardon them all. And,
Right.
you know, again, he pardoned the January 6th people. So, I mean, he goes to show you, he pardons the worst of the worst. But the master ICE tracker, I think, is beautiful for two reasons. One, Robert Garcia is a comic book freak. Like the chairman, the ranking member of the House Oversight Committee loves comic books. I just think my master ICE tracker sounds like a comic book character to me, or like maybe even like a comic book headliner. So I'm like, okay, master ICE tracker, you got all these documents coming in, and this is why I keep asking the team, and they won't tell me, right? They gave Acosta an interview yesterday, but they won't give me an interview. And the question is there going to be any public accounting, a public reporting of these tips that are coming in? And it might be like maybe a heat map, right? All of these things that we're confirming are happening in Ontario or Wicker Park or wherever, right? Can you at least put like a pin? These are the ones that we think likely happened, right? So that, like, you know, the public can see that this isn't just an inbox to nowhere. They can celebrate when their pin gets in the master ICE tracker, like federal database of crazy shit. So the other thing is, my question, since the Justice Department tends to issue takedown notices to servers that touch ICE at all, right? Is the House Oversight Committee, the House Oversight chair, the House Oversight members have already said, the Republican leading committee, they can't host it on their website. So they're going to have to find a different server. My question is, my second question to Robert Garcia, when you watch this broadcast, is where are you going to house this data, right? If the Department of Justice can just, everybody's tips comes to you and then it gets just swept out from under you like a rug, because the Europeans who've been tracking ICE in some of these European activist enclaves,
Right.
they've been housing their data in like a mountain in Switzerland that Pam Bondi has no jurisdiction over. Are you going to do that?
Reporting on that guy in
Ranking
Europe,
member Garcia is the question I have for him.
I saw your reporting on that guy in Europe who is tracking ICE, and he has no jurisdiction. They've got no jurisdiction over him in the United States. And is it going to take people like that to move the ball over the finish line with this ICE tracker? While you are here, one of the things I wanted to ask you, because you have insight and knowledge into what's happening, being where you're at and doing the intrepid reporting that you're doing. What is this rift that Fox News is reporting on in DHS between the quote moderates and the more extremists? Is Tom Homan among those moderates? Is it him just trying to cover his ass and leaking information and saying, hey, I want to just go after the criminals? It's Miller and Bovino and Noam that want to go after everyone. And if you're here illegally, I don't know, man. I was on with Acosta earlier this week. Holman has been very full-throated in saying, if you are here in the country illegally, you are going to get it. If you get in the way of any federal operation, you are going to get it. And now, according to Fox News, he's the moderate in all this. What are we supposed to make of this?
Well, Holman is a nice guy, first of all, but he's at war with Corey Lewandowski. Here's a little scooplet. At ICE, at DHS, they call Corey Lewandowski chief, like Corey the chief, right? Chief Corey.
Okay.
Because he is basically the acting chief of staff under Secretary Noem, and everybody knows it. Now, he and Holman don't get along for a lot of different reasons. There have been stories, I think Ben Terrace in New York Magazine was the first to indicate that Kristi Noem was upset with all the publicity that Tom Holman was getting, going on TV and stuff like that, because she wanted to be the one on TV. But the thing is, like, Holman is not a moderate. Holman is a psychopath, right? And all of these people, from the perspective of humanity, to anybody who has a good heart, you have a conversation with these people about what they're doing to other human beings, they're all psychopaths. There is no moderate among them. Fox News could try to brand Tom Holman as a moderate or whatever because it looks like he's on his way out. They'll give him a contributorship. Maybe he'll be able to sell like reverse mortgages or something alongside Tom Selleck into the future, whatever. But the notion that he's a moderate is insane. And the notion that your former network would have Katie Miller on to hype her podcast is an insult to viewers everywhere, Jake Tapper. Are you kidding me? I can see why Piers Morgan would do it. His format is just a big old like round robin, let's all yell at each other, whatever. Then Piers Morgan will come in with a commentary. Jake, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? So it's like, but there's no moderates amongst them. What's crazy is that people who have reasonable perspectives about, soccer moms getting the shit beat out of them by ICE, there's no place for them on that air, and that's the thing. That's why our air is thriving and their air is dropping. Migrant Insider we're at like 36 million views right now on Instagram.
Man, you are
for
on
this
a tear,
month.
dude. You are on
It's
a
crazy.
tear.
Now, Jake Tapper's here, right? I'm like all the way up here when it comes to viewership right now on the immigration beat, and yet he's having Katie Miller on to talk about about her podcast. Are you kidding me?
Hey man, but you're right here with
crazy.
Nick Valencia News. This is great. You're right where you're supposed to be. What is going on with the federalization of DC? Was that a headline grab, and all of a sudden we don't hear anything about the National Guard troops? What does it look like in DC right now, Pablo?
I mean, to me, DC's always been federalized. I mean, we don't have any rights. We don't have a congressman. We don't have anything. But I tell you this much, though. All right, might say something controversial here, but the National Guards have been cool. Like, they've been awesome.
Not controversial. It's a survey of one. It's what your perspective is. Yeah, tell me about it.
They mulch, they weed, they pick up trash. They just stand around board. They haven't raised their gun on anybody. They've not assisted in any abduction. They haven't done anything. They're just chilling here for $1 million a day of wasted taxpayer money, and on occasion they do landscaping. So, I mean, if that's the thing, then whatever. Like, I don't feel like we need troops on the ground here. I don't live in one of the most dangerous neighborhoods either, so I don't want to speak for the whole town. But I will say this. All the guardsmen and guardswomen who I've talked to, just walking the streets with my dog or whatever, have been cool. They've been respectful. You can tell they're kind of on vacation. They're kind of pissed off because the museums are closed, right? But
yeah,
$1 million a day, it's not been harmful in my view to my community here, especially the immigrants,
And if you're just joining us, you're joined by the editor of Migrant Insider, Pablo Manrqiuez, a man that just had a crushing month on social media, hitting nearly 40 million views. And you're doing just phenomenal work, man. This is going to get worse before it gets better, right? I mean, I saw your post yesterday. You said to anyone in the migrant community, anyone that has friends that are here with mixed legal status, just hunker down, love each other, love on each other, because this is going to get worse. What do you see happening? What can you prepare our viewers and our audience for in the days and months ahead?
I mean, it is going to get worse in the days and months ahead, but it will get better in the years ahead. Like, I have every faith in this country coming back from this. You know what I mean? If you see anything, the way that the mass deportations have gotten bogged down in Chicago, the notion of doing this nationwide is not happening. They don't have the money, even with the $160 billion for deportations. They don't have the money for it unless they get the military involved. And the military is like half immigrants. You know what I mean? I imagine you would have mutiny in the ranks if, like, you told some of my friends that they had to go back to their communities or to any community and round up abuelitas or assist in like a secret police like raid, So the Insurrectionist Act is kind of what they've been going for, but they failed. They failed to instigate an incident that they could propagandize and make it into like time for the insurrection act. Now, could that happen? Sure, it could still happen, but this is going to be part of the process, right? I keep talking, and again, everybody hates it. They roll their eyes. But when we had power, we did not insulate communities from this. When there is power again on the side of good-hearted people who don't hate immigrants, right? They have to insulate people from this
How
because
do
it
you
will
do
get
that? What
better.
do you
But then
do?
it could just get just as worse again because the precedent is now set. So it can get better, but you got to have your champions, community. You got to have your champions of Washington. I'll always be a reporter. I'm never going to work in government, but you got to have people who work in government who will
But
do
like, is it
that job.
amnesty? Is it legislation? Is that what it's going to take? I mean, is it, making sure that people that are here going through their asylum claims and moving in good faith that have legal work permits are protected and taken care of? I mean, what's the solution in your eyes? You are so close to this, and that's why we're so excited that you're here with us, Pablo. So what's the remedy?
The solution is amnesty, obviously.
Yeah.
A big, beautiful amnesty, period, right? You got to have an amnesty that accounts for all these subgroups that everybody's bitching about right now, whether it's farm workers or manufacturers or documented dreamers or regular dreamers or H1, everybody who contributes to the economy and isn't MS-13, should get an amnesty, right? If you have your paperwork in order, then you should get an amnesty. And there should be riders on that amnesty. If you didn't show up for immigration court, or if you didn't file your taxes because it would have been in bad faith during this administration, you should be able to retroactively apply and show up to an appointment in a moment when you're not going to be betrayed by Uncle Sam. So these type, the amnesty, just for reference, the amnesty is a 1-paragraph bill, right? A Richard Nixon amnesty is the bill, right? It's called the Amendment to the Immigration and Rationality Act of 1935 or something like that. Like it's some long title that Zoe Lofgren came up with when she was being nerdy. But the essence of the bill is 1 paragraph. If you have arrived before a certain date, you can apply for citizenship, right? Now you put riders on that say, unless you're MS-13, unless you're a rapist, unless you're a pedophile, right?
Right.
But additional riders will be, if you didn't, you have to have your tax paperwork in order, but if you don't have your tax paperwork in order, because during the Trump administration, filing with the IRS would have given your, where you sleep to ICE, then, okay, cool. File then, and get right with us, and then apply for your citizenship.
It's why people aren't applying to colleges. They don't want to put their parents' social security number, their tax ID number. They're choosing. I mean, this is having a ripple effect across because even if you are moving in good faith, it makes you susceptible. It's not like, we had somebody on here who's the daughter of a mom who had been reporting to USCIS last 5 years, had some immigration hiccup. She even reported during the last year. Her first year reporting was the last year of Trump 1.0. Reports all through Biden, shows up this time, first time, October 6th. Taken into custody. Now she's in a detention facility in California City. You tell me that you need an elderly woman, woman in her late 60s who is a mom to a woman with a kidney disease. Like, is that somebody that you're going after? That's the bad guys. These are the people that we're targeting. It makes absolutely no sense to us, and it's not moving in good faith. The other loopholes that need to be addressed are these companies, man, the Hyundai plants, the Coke farms that supply undocumented labor, that give opportunities. The amnesty in '87 with Reagan provided that loophole for companies to say, hey, we got duped. We didn't know people here, and it's like, that's what's unfair to this journalist is you go after the individuals. Don't hate the player, hate the game, man. They're just going and working within the system that's been established. And then when you do it the right way, you caught up in this bottleneck system where there's deliberately not enough Customs and Border Protection agents or immigration judges or whatever it is to process your claim. Because people make money. At the end of the day, Pablo, you and I both know this is all about private prison infrastructure and the expansion of it in the United States. And today it's the undocumented, and tomorrow it's the undesirable American or the fucking journalist, man, that's holding them accountable, unfortunately.
They best not, So here's the thing about when it came to subpoenaing journalists, Pam Bondi wrote a memo I thought was really interesting at the very beginning of the presidency that changed a little bit of the guidance, right? And the memo is basically this. It was like, the only way the journalist gets subpoenaed is if the attorney general personally signs off on it, and then the attorney general, the purpose of the meeting is a face-to-face meeting with the attorney general to negotiate, right? And I would love to negotiate an interview with her. I'll bring my phone. We could do it right then. You know what I mean? Like, for real. It's just sort of like, I would think about the whole time. I was like, wow, that's interesting because, she's taking it seriously. It's like, if you're going to subpoena a journalist, you know, don't delegate because this is going to be a big deal and it will be a big deal. But a face-to-face meeting with the attorney general, okay, right? Like,
Some people feel the same way about a face-to-face meeting with Pablo, man. Hey, my brother, we're last question to you. It's what I ask everybody. Anything that we haven't talked about that you think is important to know, anything that you'd like to say, plug your work, baby. You're doing amazing work. I'm so grateful for you.
oh man, I think that I want to give a big shout out to a few different people on Instagram who have helped me grow on Instagram. And you got to help Nick grow on Instagram. We should all be collaborating together. First of all, I would say Midas Touch, the brothers out in Los Angeles. These guys have created something incredible, right? Aaron Parnas, right? We were walking around the No Kings rally the other day, right? And everybody's just like, oh my God, are you Aaron Parnas? Can I get a selfie? I was like, man, I need to turn the camera around and start doing it this way. You know what I mean? And then I would say the Sidewalk School on Instagram. No account, I like to think that I'm the best or whatever. They're actually the best. They find the accounts, they find the clips of ICE misconduct before anybody else. So the Sidewalk School, shout out to the Sidewalk School. Hope you're out of Instagram jail because they wouldn't let you doing any collaborations or whatever. So if you're Anna Mosseri needs to unlock the Sidewalk School, please. And then I would say us, dude. Us, the guys who have been doing it forever, right? The people who have been doing it forever, who've been covering immigration forever, right? You can rely on us for guidance. You can rely on us for knowing, for having that long view of kind of what this is and where it's going. So those are the shout outs I would give today. Midas Touch, Aaron Parnas, Sidewalk School, and us.
I love it, man. We love you. We love when you come in, you hype up the chat, you get us going, bro. I'll see you hopefully next week in DC. I'm on my way, man. We'll hang out. Love you, brother. That was Pablo Manrqiuez, editor with the Migrant Insider. He is one of the OGs, man. I mean, I know there's people like Aaron Parnas and Jim Acosta who got on Substack early, but one of the first people to talk to me about Substack, I remember being in my office at CNN in the Atlanta bureau, and Pablo was telling me what he was up to and said, hey, dude, go check out my Migrant Insider page on Substack. Here you go. Here's a free membership, a free subscription. You don't have to pay for it. I just want you to check it out, give me your feedback. And it has been a wonderful collaboration with him in the last 4 or 5 months since we've been independent. That's our show, guys. We touched on a lot. And we know that there's a lot more ahead. Kristi Noem's announcement on Halloween that there's going to be an uptick in ICE activity. The Border Patrol now taking a lead in immigration enforcement out on the streets. Like Pablo said, we're seeing a lot more broken bones, a lot more violent incidents. We should expect to see more. And another thing that actually made me feel a little better about journalist protections here in this country. There is a lot of fear that standing up and speaking truth to power could make you stand out and could make you vulnerable to be targeted. And we've seen it with activists and federal law enforcement agents going after them. There obviously is fear among my peers and people like me that potentially the work that we're doing could catch the ire of someone like President Trump or someone within his administration. A lot of good details provided throughout the show with those two guests, and we're so grateful that you guys joined today. We are going to continue to follow these stories as they develop, especially the incidents, the violent incidents, and uptick of that between federal immigration officers on the streets of America and everyday citizens. And we are also planning on going out next week, back on the road. Mentioned it a little briefly there with Pablo. I'm going to be in Washington, D.C., where we're meeting with the Pew Research Center for a new media summit. Pew Research Center has designated us as one of the top news content creators in the country. What a beautiful title to be given, bestowed upon by an organization like that. And thanks so much, guys, for hanging with us here in the last hour. We really appreciate you guys helping make truth go viral. We had a big week, man. Those floating head videos are doing a lot of numbers. We're so grateful that you guys are paying attention. And as always, guys, have a great day on purpose.